Welcome to the Art of Living Free series with Anthony Silard, brought to you by theartoflivingfree.org. Today, Dr. Silard continues exploring what addicts us to news about the pandemic, Part 2.
Hello, I'm Anthony Silard, and welcome to the Art of Living Free. What addicts us to news about the pandemic? Well, it's the same thing that's addicted us to technology in the first place. So let's take a look at that. So if going online is not such a good idea, why do we do it? That's where the app developers have beat us. Because what happens is we feel all of this dopamine. So the doom scrolling, right? You know, studies on dopamine are fascinating. A study of rats found that male rats seeking a female rat release more dopamine during the chase than during actual copulation. So dopamine is not about the catch, it's about the chase. It's a neurochemical that we release when we feel we're getting closer to an objective. So anxiety, again, is an existential emotion because we perceive a threat is out there in our environment. Well, Nico Friesda, the Dutch psychologist and very prominent emotion theorist, his whole theory and what he found in his research was that emotions have specific tendencies toward action embedded in them. And emotions that are high in arousal or activation, chiefly among them for negative emotions, would be anxiety. For positive emotions, it would be excitement. But for negative, anxiety is one of the chief ones, right? So we feel anxiety because we have this tendency toward action. So the anxiety can basically help us because we take action to reduce or minimize the threat in our environment. But the problem is that we overdo it. And that's where the dopamine that surges within us when we go on our screens, because we're doom scrolling or we're looking at the news, we're trying to find out what's going on so we can keep ourselves safe, we overdo it. And when you release too much dopamine, that's where essentially your immune system starts to break down. And the even worse part of it, any of you that are familiar with addiction know that the more addicted you are to a substance and the more you use it, the less of a high it gives you, and the more you need to get that high. It's the same with our screens. We're kind of numb. We go over and over and over again. That's why Facebook and screen use has been so linked to depression, loneliness, anxiety in so many studies. Let's hear what Robert Lustig, who's a professor of pediatrics and endocrinology at USC, that's what he shares about dopamine and about the way we use our phones and our devices. According to Lustig, the internet is not a drug, but it might as well be. It works the same way and has the same results. Robert Lustig has found that the brain responds similarly to screens as the way it does to other addictive substances, ranging from sugar to heroin. So, how on earth did these app developers hit this out of the park, you may be thinking? How did they develop these apps and these phones and our laptops and tablets to the extent that they've captured our attention? Like really, never have we so given our attention to any technology medium as we have today. How did they do that? Well, one of the tricks is what's called variable rate reinforcement or variable interval reinforcement. This is B.F. Skinner Behaviorism 101. So essentially what it is, if you knew every time you went on your phone or your device, like how much information you might receive, or like when, so again, it's variable rate or variable interval reinforcement. If you knew, like, okay, every day at 3 p.m., there's going to be an update, and I'm going to have all the news that I need on one app, and I'm going to check it at 3 p.m. each day, you're not going to feel such a surge in dopamine. It becomes less addictive. It's addictive because you never know when the next news flash is coming, what the news is going to be, how much of it's going to come. If you give, there's all this research they show, like for example with pigeons, if you give them the same pellets of food at the same intervals, they lose interest in the food. But if they never know, if they're not eating enough, and then you don't give them a lot of food, and then you vary the rate at which you give them the food, then this is classic behaviorism. Then they're always coming and trying to get the food, right? So even though they're not getting it most of the time. They're always checking to see if it's there. That's how we are with the news. That little morsel of news that's going to be the be-all, end-all, and we can now really protect ourselves and our families because now we know that the curve is flattening with COVID, or now we know what's happening with the presidential polls because we want our political party to be in power to handle the largest public health crisis of our lifetimes, or whatever the news you're seeking. Right? Schools are reopening, so my kids are going to develop their socio-emotional abilities again and not be sitting at home all day behind Zoom and I can't get any work done. Because you know what I'm saying? The anxiety is surging, and in me and all of us, right? And we want that little antidote. And we don't know, and what the apps do, what the news does, it gives us it dangles little morsels, little pellets here and there at variable rates, and we never know when they're coming, and so we're checking all the time, just like those pigeons. That is at the sort of the crux and that's the basis for how app developers have hit it out of the park and gotten us so addicted to our phones and our devices. So the million-dollar question, what can you do? Well, there are a number of things you can do. First and foremost is develop your own values for how you're going to use your phone and your devices. So imagine yourself at 80 years old. If you're over 80, imagine yourself at 100. Imagine that I'd like to say that white-haired Anthony, but I've already got some white hair, right? So that whiter-haired Anthony, right, standing next to me saying, hey, Anthony, here's how often I think you should check your phone. And like here I am at 80 years old, and I'm telling you at your age, I don't want you to waste all of your, I'm 53 now. They say, I don't want you to waste your 53rd year just hovered over your phone checking the news. Here's how often I'd like you to check the news. And I'm going to listen to that person because that person is my higher values. That's my deeper values and higher self. That's my life vision of how I want to live my life. And it's so easy to get disconnected from that life vision because here we are on stage. We're on stage all the time. Okay, politically, what do I think? Economically, how am I going to handle the pandemic? Socially, how am I going to develop social connections with people given the new constraints of social distancing, mask wearing, etc.? There's so many challenges in front of us. And it's like this, like we're on stage all day long and we're not finding a way to get off stage and onto the balcony to observe ourselves on stage, that 80-year-old, that higher self, observing ourselves on stage and saying, here's how I want you to live your life. That's what we need to spend more time doing. So however you do that, meditation, going for a long walk alone, watching the sunset, yoga, dancing, having a good conversation with a close friend, on the phone, or maybe in a park with social distance, whatever you're doing, finding ways to reconnect with your deeper self, with the deeper self that tells you, this is what I stand for, this is what I value, this is what I want to be remembered for.
Life offers us many challenges, and theartoflivingfree.org offers new ways of thinking so we can see these challenges from a new angle and overcome them. Whether it's Anthony Silard's free blog, video or podcast series, his book, Screened in: The Art of Living Free in the Digital Age, or personalized courses, theartoflivingfree.org will help you refine your life vision and then transform it into action. Find out more at theartoflivingfree.org.